Welcome back to Montford Boulevard. Today we're completely remaking a 1934 club chair. We'll be referencing both Amsterdam school and Art Deco furniture as we restyle this well-built vintage chair. This was another piece of furniture that had quite a few stories to tell. This will also be a special episode with some background on who we are. We hope you enjoy it. This was a project we started on a while back, but we had to tuck it aside while we focused on other furniture projects. Here's the original shot, and if you look at the face of the chair where the arms are connected, it was a little thinner than we wanted. You can see on the left here we're starting to extend the face of the chair. Did the same on the right as well. We'll show the references later for why we decided to do that. And this is the back of the chair, which we wanted more rounded than the original rectangular shape. So here was the first find inside that chair, and I'll space the others out throughout this video. You can see the bottom right-hand corner says 1934, and we're calling this the birth date of this chair. But if you look at the text on the left, it's talking about the Nottingham lace curtain industry, as approved November 1933 by President Roosevelt. If anybody knows what that's talking about, we'd be very curious to hear. Back to work on the chair, and most of this was very well built. As a matter of fact, we were able to retain the original stuffing, which included both moss and cotton batting. This is fresh Dacron that we're putting over top. We did add a little bit more cotton batting just to kind of build out the shape that we wanted. It was amazing how much of the original stuffing we were able to retain though. Of course it did need a little bit extra to kind of fluff it up again, but the base was very solid. For the fabric we chose a high quality cotton velvet. It has a very elegant nap to it, and you want to make sure it's facing the right way. We think this is going to give sort of a rich, royal look to this chair, which is what we're going for. And you can already see just placing in the seat cover here how rich that's going to be. Already starting to come back to life. For this project, we purchased a sewing machine. The Singer Company was founded in Boston, Massachusetts in 1851, but the demand was so high for the UK customers that they opened a factory in Glasgow, Scotland. We checked the serial number on this sewing machine, and it turns out it was actually made in 1960 in Glasgow, Scotland. This is a picture of the factory workers there, headed back after their lunch break. Just another fascinating piece of background on this. Now, I've dabbled a little bit in upholstery, but that's really more my dad's specialty, so I'm going to let him talk about that.
It's been a while since upholstery was my full-time job, but sometimes those skills come into play with what we do here at Montford Boulevard. My first job in the furniture field was in 1975, working for an upholstery shop in Minneapolis. We did mostly custom van conversions and built restaurant booths from scratch. After working there a year or so, having learned the basics, I saved up enough to purchase an existing upholstery business with a fabric store and showroom in the front from a fellow who was retiring. This is where I learned the basics of restoring furniture down to the last detail. This is a 1928 sofa that had to come apart down to the last board. After reassembling the frame, respringing it, and refinishing the wood, I did the piece over in Angora mohair with goose down cushions and tapestry cushion tops. The largest project I took on was to reupholster 2,200 seats in the State Theater in Minneapolis. It took nearly a mile of fabric and 6 weeks to do that job. There we learned about lay cutting with an upright cutter, and we're cutting 30 layers at a time. My old friend Mark worked with me for a good while and helped me with that project. It wasn't long before my son was old enough to introduce to the trade. I took every opportunity to bring Matt on job sites, and he caught on very quickly. The project at hand is a one-family-owned 1934 American-made chair, which I decided to restyle as a tribute to the Amsterdam School movement. Amsterdam School was a companion movement to Art Deco between 1910 and 1940. Making patterns from scratch is an essential step, and here I am testing the fit before attaching the custom cover. The springs I found to be in quite remarkably perfect condition and showed very little, if any, wear. Measuring for the 3-piece band on the inside back is another critical point in this project. Also, making sure the template is perfectly symmetrical. You really have to respect the job of a factory pattern maker. So here we have a nice symmetrical pattern for the inside back. And if you notice at the top there are 3 notches which are indicating where the band will join to the 3 separate parts to adhere to the contour. Testing my pattern here. There's a pull strip at the bottom to save fabric. This fabric's kind of pricey and you don't want to waste it. So here's that band with the cording to match the seat. Making things fit a curved surface is like sculpting in fabric. I purchased this chair from a woman whose father bought it new and who would sit in it after work and read the newspaper.
So here was another really interesting find. You can see this is a piece of newspaper from Atlanta, Georgia. Look on the other side, July 23rd, 1951. You can picture somebody sitting in the chair here with a pair of scissors, snipping something out. You can see some of the cut marks there. But if you look closely, you can see this was an article about a funeral service. So it makes you wonder if somebody was clipping out a photo of a loved one who had passed away. Kind of sad.
So now we'll work with the fit on the inside back. And with restyling furniture, it's not like reupholstery. You have to custom fit every little detail. I'm going to secure the seat now that I can tell it's going to work with what's ahead. You'll notice I have muslin covering over areas that have been padded up. That's a treat if anybody ever redoes this chair. It'll unupholster and leave the shapes of the arms and the back in place. Looking good. So here's an inside arm, marked top. Top is respecting the fact that the nap has to run down that way. Test fit it there.
So when I was taking one of the arms apart, this fell out. A buffalo nickel. I'm not sure I've seen one this worn, which raises some questions. You can't even make out the date and type, which is kind of a shame. But buffalo nickels were produced from 1913 to 1938. So this is just another little moment in time that was captured by this chair. And so interesting that this was the coin that fell out when I opened that arm. Really a surprise.
It's been very difficult to keep from mocking this design up. I've had a design in my mind, and I keep revisiting my ideas to see if they're going to work, and visualizing these designs in advance is very helpful. Here we go with the outside arm. We're supporting it from underneath with some padding, and they call it basting. I baste the covers in place before I secure them permanently to just make sure everything's fitting properly. Look at those springs.
Yet another discovery here. This was a tag we found on the inside of the chair, dating the construction of the springs at 1921 or 1922 in Chicago.
So these corner blocks even were tight, and construction of this chair, hardwood, very, very good foundation. Here's a piece of Ply Grip. It takes the place of hand stitching in a curved area. They say that the fellow that invented it is sitting in the Bahamas sipping a pina colada right now. We're going to put a foundational surface on the lower front band to support the padding. I use canvas in a case like this so that it's got extra durability versus muslin. And we'll staple that down good and then add the padding.
And finally, the last two finds inside this chair. This tag from the Northfield Company in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. If anybody knows anything about that, would be very curious. Couldn't find much on this company. And then this. If you look closely, it says London Transport on there. So we're very curious if these numbers mean anything, or if this was bus fare or train. If anybody can identify this, we would be very curious, very interested to know. So what you see here at the bottom, these were just temporary legs so that the chair would be balanced while we were working on it. And now we're getting ready to put on the custom feet, so I'm going to cut off those supports. Just like that. And here you go. We actually have 2 feet that we're going to double up on. And that's the look that we're going for, kind of again referencing the Amsterdam school. Cutting the final flap to go on the front here. Marked T for top, again because the nap has a certain brush to it and you want it positioned the right way. We've got this wood book matched. This is high quality oak that we purchased. You can see that grain already. A little bit more Dacron in there just to add some padding in the front. But we're holding up for a mock-up here. Got some Art Deco appliques as well. And I have these pieces of wood taped together because we want to double up on the thickness for the front. And it's actually going to help hide the hardware when we attach these panels on the front of the chair. Carefully cutting them at the same width. Now I'm going to use the bandsaw to round the top of this trim. This is going to go on either side of the face of the chair. That's the look. I'll need to smoothen that out just a little bit with some sanding. But that really shouldn't take much time at all. High quality hard oak wood here, but it still sands just fine. There you go, that's looking about right. Gonna hold it up just to check and see, and that's about what we're looking for. Yeah, looks good. Now we'll add some stain, general finishes, and I believe this was dark walnut. There we go, and look at that grain coming out. The applique looking much richer as well. We purchased those from a guy who cuts them custom. Did a very good job, but we were very happy with that grain. If you've watched our channel, you've seen this technique before. We are spraying black over top only after we've already sealed it with lacquer, and the black is lacquer as well. And we're using Lac French to remove the black. We just want it in the grooves there to give this a bit more volume. Showing off the beautiful brush on that cotton velvet high quality fabric. Now we pretty much just have the back to seal up and the final trim to put on the front, and we'll be ready. Using that Ply Grip here. Very handy method for invisibly holding down the fabric on the back. Gonna get it in just the right position so we can tuck the fabric in there. Add a layer of Dacron first, just to give the chair a nice little bit of soft padding in the back. And tucking it in. Then we will come back and tap that Ply Grip down. See how handy that is? Works really well. Looking tight. Now just a couple tacks here in the back to make sure that fabric stays down. Now we are cutting out the cambric to close the bottom of the chair up. Just a few final steps here. Just to give it a nice, clean, finished look. And we're going to use the nail gun for the first layer of that trim in the front. Again, we're going to be able to hide that hardware with the second layer that goes over top of it. The heavier screws we can hide. We're not so worried about the nails from the nailer. We can position them in the grain, and that's easy touch-up to come and take care of. We're using glue as well, just to make sure this never comes off. Again, we're just so happy with the way that oak looks on there. Let everything dry just a bit. Now just a little bit of touch-up on the bottom on this foot here. And this chair is just about ready for her close-up.
This project turned out to be a bit more ambitious than I anticipated, but with Matt's help, we did find a way to get it across the finish line. And like every project, it had lessons that will really help us on the next one we do.
One more look at the before and after here. Hard to believe it's the same chair, but I'd say she's good and ready for another 100 years. As always, check below for our furniture store if you'd like to purchase this item. And if you enjoyed this video, here's another one you might like. We sure appreciate you sticking around. You're welcome back here at Montford Boulevard anytime.